Thank you guys for joining me here at Torn Reels. I obviously have a different guest. Otherwise, we wouldn't, be in this situation. I'd be talking to currently my brother. But yeah, we have Aaron with us today.
I'm not your brother?
Thankfully.
I'm going to go home and cut myself now.
Yeah, don't cut too deep. That's where the tendons go away, and then you just... Anyway, the point is, today we're actually doing a documentary. Typically, we've bounced back from documentaries, movies, even some type of shows. We did... What was the one that we did, Tyler? Shogun? Which we never did a season 2 about. Don't watch it. It's not that great. Anyway... what the fuck? So, the one that we're doing today is the most recent addition to Netflix about the Titan implosion. It's called Titan, the Oceangate disaster. Now, when this incident first happened, I was like, okay, cool, they imploded, and then never picked up on it again. There was a lot of people who were like counting down the hours. I was like, but they're already dead. Like, what are you doing? But I guess apparently the world didn't understand that. So I decided a few years later when this documentary come out to revisit it and kind of be obsessed with it for a bit. Literally, my TikTok feed is destroyed with Oceangate. Like, I don't even have thirst traps anymore. Like, now it's just Oceangate. It's just like Stockton Rush, like talking about his innovations all the time. It kind of gives me a wiggle, but not too much, We're still there. So what did you think about it from when you watched it?
When I first heard that Oceangate came out, right, and I was like, fucking billionaires at the bottom of the ocean, they got what they deserved, right? And I was part of the like making fun of it, Titanic too, it strikes again, just kind of like going through the motions with the rest of social media. But when I watched the documentary here, it kind of brought a more like human aspect to it. Like, hey, these were people's families. There was a lot that happened to it.
And above all, these people were told that this was safe.
Yeah.
Like, they were told that this was completely 100% safe, that there was going to be no issue with it, no problems or anything like that.
And the biggest thing for me is that they were sold on it was safe. Like, they were told multiple times, hey, don't worry about it. It's absolutely safe. I've done it a few times. Like, it's safe. It's safe. There's nothing that can possibly go wrong. Like, that to me is like when someone sells you on that, you're apt to believe them, like, hey, they clearly know what they're talking about then. And then the documentary just shows that, like, hey, they really just fucked the pooch on this one. Like, straight up, no callback, no reach around, just in and out, fucked them.
Right. And this documentary goes step by step and reveals more things, because before this, HBO released a documentary as well called Implosion, and it was also the Titan disaster, where it shows some of the stuff, some of the Coast Guard investigation and everything, and that's what we also see in this one. It's also another like angle of the Coast Guard investigation or the Coast Guard case, stuff like that they're kind of like looking into. So you hear testimony from David Lockridge, you hear testimony from the director of Marine Operations after David Lockridge, the leader of or the head of engineering department before he got fired and everything like that. And you discover what this type of person like Stockton was. Like, a lot of people at first were like, oh, well, no one could have seen this coming. No one could have seen this coming.
Like, bullshit.
We've already heard James Cameron's testimony on 60 Minutes and a few other places where he talks about everybody knowing this. But this documentary kind of gets into the root where you see just how far his arrogance went.
Yeah.
Where you had people like James Cameron, PH, and a few other people who were telling him, hey, this is a bad idea. And it ultimately led to one of the endings of one of the most respected in this field, PH. Unfortunately, a friend of James Cameron, he's gone. He's gone because of the submersible disaster, and he's one of the guys who arguably is probably one of the fathers of submersibles, and one man operated submersibles and stuff, and unfortunately he was a victim of this. But James Cameron recites that he knew the day that this happened, that the second he heard the implosion, he's like, his wife came up to me and we were already like mourning him, and I'm like, So then why did the Coast Guard take so long? But as you go through the movie, it kind of shows you. I don't know if you saw this, Aaron, but it kind of shows you the steps that the Coast Guard took because they were stuck in a procedural situation where they had to follow rules and regulations and still have like this little bit of hope that they were recovering them rather than just recovering the bodies and stuff. Yeah. So they were tied by litigation, I guess, or red tape would be the best.
Yeah, because I mean, like let's face it, right? In most scenarios that you're out into extreme weathers or extreme terrain, you are taking your life into your own hands, and you have to go through the process. And search and rescue has to go through that process of doing everything they can in that scenario.
Right.
And for the families, you know, it's a good thing because it's like, hey, we want to make sure that they're getting the attention that they need, you know, to try and find them, to bring them home. Hopefully there's alive. If there's 1%, you know, that's still 1%. Even if there's 0.001%, like it's not zero.
Yeah.
Like, let's try and see, like, if this is how much oxygen that they had, if they're still alive. This is how much time we have to find them before we start just being like, hey, now it's a recovery.
Now you see the testimony of a lot of people. It's James Cameron, but it's also this other guy. I can't remember his name exactly. It's another guy who's a specialist in submersible community. He differs between your train of thought, and so does James Cameron. They think that it was wrong of the Coast Guard to say that there was even a slight % chance, because both of these guys both of these guys stated that the only way you could lose communications and lose tracking would be in case of an implosion. Now, people are asking, how do they know that? Well, not only are they experts in submersibles, specifically designed in submersibles, the tracking system is separated from the main cabin just in case something like this were to happen. They can still recover the ship. It's actually like required for it to be in its own compartment, so that way they don't have this issue where they can just you know what I mean? And James Cameron has said numerous times, and Lockridge even says it on the interview as well, and he agrees with it. This community is so safe that they didn't know how to deal with this disaster because it had never happened. Because everybody in the community was so safe, had so many regulations. You're supposed to register. You're supposed to do all this, and these are all things that Stockton completely ignored.
Oh my God, there was, and just watching the documentary was like, he didn't give a fuck. That was the thing, is that it wasn't like he was doing this for the greater good of mankind. This wasn't coming from a place of like he didn't give a fuck about safety. He didn't give a fuck about him bringing other people's lives. This was purely greed. It was pure arrogance. It was 100% this guy just being an absolute fucking dirtbag human being. And I'll say it, if he was still alive, I'd say it to his face. But unfortunately, he's looking like a fucking cube from the junkyard. So
less than that, I bet. But no, like, just a lot of people actually are now trying to uncover and think that you're completely wrong with that aspect. They think that he was just overwhelmed financially. Because remember, every time he does one of those dives, it takes money. Any repairs, it takes money. Any type of technology error, it takes money. So they think that he was just overwhelmed financially, and a lot of people think that he was trying to commit suicide, and he just brought those people along with him. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. It's not verified yet, but
that's worse.
That is worse. It's worse
because okay, you want to do that? All right, take your own stupid, shitty sub down there. Let it happen to you. You took other people. That's not okay.
Right.
That's never going to be okay. You didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, okay? If you're looking to off yourself, right? There's a scene where he goes fucking 3,939 feet.
No, 3,000.
3,939 feet under the water, right?
Meters down,
right? So he goes to that meters down, and then he comes back up because he got scared.
For those of you who don't know, the Titanic sits at 4,000 meters. Just a little over 4,000 meters under the water.
Isn't it fathoms?
Fathoms. Joule.
Fathoms
Joule's
is the
verb.
speed.
Isn't it? I thought it was.
Nope.
Okay.
Fathoms is the speed.
Fathoms speed. No, well, that's also knots.
Yeah, that's
Knots
knots
is
is the speed.
Fathoms.
Fathoms is the depth.
Fathoms
Maybe
is
it's
the
just
depth,
an
but why
old
would
way
they
for
be
the
like-
depth. But
I don't know. Maybe
okay,
maybe there's
apparently
like a
I'm in the
conversion.
1800s.
No, but
Well,
maybe
wait a
it's a
second,
conversion.
because
Maybe
you have leagues as well.
yeah, you have leagues under the sea.
So
Maybe it's
leagues,
like just different
fathoms.
metric
No
system.
wonder this shit happened to him. He didn't know how far down he was.
This motherfucker was like,
He's at meters when he's actually at fathoms.
Because here's the thing, you also get the same thing with temperature. You get Fahrenheit, Celsius, and then like Kelvin.
No. Freedom units.
Freedom units.
Freedom units.
Celsius. Communist units.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. No, and then you had like Kelvin, which like Kelvin dictates other types of
Ruski.
heater. Yeah.
Ruski.
What?
Yeah, Kelvin. Ruski. You got freedom
Get out.
units. You
Get
got
out.
Celsius. You got Ruski.
Metrics by Tyler. Anyway, but so for those people who don't know, the Titanic sits at 4,000 meters below sea level. Anyway, 39, 39.
So he reaches this, right? And you can hear some of the cracking of the hull and stuff like that that's going on. You know, he comes back up once he reaches 39, 39. And then he proclaims loudly that he broke a record. I broke a record. I went, 17 minutes was with James Cameron, I beat him. Or no, 17 hours. 17 hours I was down there. That's more than James Cameron. It's like, okay, dude, that's cool, but you're not, it's fucking cracking. Like everyone's telling you it's cracking.
Well, first two things. They didn't know originally that video came out. That video, nobody knew about it. That video where you see him and he's like barefoot and he's just like moving the camera around and you can hear all the cracking. And it's not like little cracking. It's violent amounts of cracking.
Yeah.
Like it's like if you took...
It'd be like if it was like in an implosion.
It's like if you took the sound that it sounds like if you took one of those like hats that are made out of like yarn or like threaded together and you just went like that and you just crush it. You just hear
like cracking ice.
yeah.
Like just like
Yeah,
little.
it-
Just
But like
It
Like
sounds
when you
like
pour
if you were
water
to
in
take
it?
the plastic around an Oreo container and start crunching it together.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it sounds like. But my point is this, right? If he was looking to commit the suicide, why would he come the fuck back up? If he was that...
he wasn't trying to commit suicide according to them, or not them. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to actually say the source. So according to a lot of people like Lockridge and a lot of people like the director of Marine Life afterwards, and then even the Coast Guard are saying that the reason... well, I think the investigator's name is like Justin Nurborough or something like that for the Coast Guard, are saying that it wasn't until the final dive that he was going to commit suicide. That was the one, because there was a bunch of in the actual documentary it shows the failures, so it shows how Boeing was involved, because Boeing was involved despite them saying they weren't involved. They were involved because they created the initial plans. Now, what liberates Boeing is the fact that Boeing stated to Stockton, hey, this isn't suitable. You're probably going to get at least as far as like 3,000 something meters. But if you stay at 4,000 meters too long, you risk severe injury or death or damage to the vessel.
well, because wasn't it? Yeah, they built it, but didn't they build it for an entire different ship, like for him to go do tours with? Isn't that originally? Because they did other ships before, because he couldn't build a thing to get down there.
So he was building the ship to get down there, and they were doing test runs. The whole point of the ship was so that he could take people down there.
That's why Boeing got involved, because Boeing was like, oh, okay, like they do airplanes, they do all that stuff. So they were like, oh, if this works, we can have a stake in the business, which is a smart business plan. But Boeing, intelligently enough, backed up when it started failing and said, hey, this is not feasible. You need to have different material. Now, because when something like this happens with Boeing or Northrop or anything like that, if you give them the type of things that you want, they give you the schematics. So they give you the schematics so you could see the breakdown of everything, of how everything's going to be constructed. So Stockton's idea was, if Boeing left, we still have the instructions. We still have the concept, art of it. So we can actually mock up a practice test and keep testing it ourselves and adjusting it as we need, which is fine if you do that. But the problem is he didn't do that. So there's a specific part in the video where they're recording it, and Stockton is there with what is his name? What was his name? David,
David Lockridge or something like that.
David Lockridge. He's in the room with David Lockridge. I believe her name was Ella. Is one of the HR. One of the accountants.
And then you had the head engineer.
Yeah, and then you had the head engineer all there, and they're sitting there talking as he's testing it in a simulated pressure tank, whatever, right? So it gets to 3,300 feet or 3,300 meters and breaks, right? You hear a loud pop, and then he goes, well, we can pretty much count that as 4,000. No, you can't.
That's not how... Okay.
And the head engineer flat out says, he's like, we can't do that. We have to find another way to make this happen.
And then Lockridge was part of one of the dives as it goes on. Because, okay, he continues doing it, right? He continues diving. He continues trying to perfect it, which, again, I appreciate his hustle for trying to create something.
He's avidly going about this. Like, he believes that this could be something that happens and takes place. He believes it can happen. He believes it can work. But the problem is that he's telling him, hey, we can't do it this way. We have to make this safer, and we have to do this right.
And that's where he starts getting upset, and he starts having the thing.
And fucking Stockton, being the big dumbass billionaire piece of shit baby he is, starts cutting him out of emails, starts telling him like, hey, to the point where they were all in a meeting over the phone. And Stockton says, from a report that Lockridge gave him, he says, hey, bro, he's like, why are these concerns popping up all of a sudden? He's like, throughout the entire fucking documentary, he's been telling you straight out, these are concerns continuously. You just haven't been listening or paying attention. And he's like, these aren't coming from out of nowhere. He's telling him like, hey, this is X, Y, and Z. We need to be safe. And fucking, what is it? Stockton just basically is like, no, whatever. Like, if that's the case, we'll find somebody else.
Now, let me give you a little bit of background into Stockton, because they go into this in Oceangate. He is. So you hear that?
Sounds like something's about to pop. We should get out of this room.
No. So Stockton was an engineer, and he was an engineer. An aeronautical engineer, I believe, or aerospace engineer, right? He built a plane. Great plane. Awesome. But he took that concept without understanding the basics of engineering. Now, I took engineering courses. I did a lot of engineering stuff. Never got my degree. Not smart enough, I guess. Whatever. But I never got my degree. Even I know the importance of the basics of engineering regarding that. Aeronautical engineering, aerospace engineering, mechanical engineering, and electrical engineering are all different. And there's a reason that they're all different. Because the people that do one can't automatically offhand do the other. And that's what? I thought you were going to say something.
No, I was. I just from what I've seen about this whole thing, I know you're saying they are different disciplines. They're different, they can't necessarily cross. But every single time I would see, they would interview different people from those different fields, and they're like, all of them were like, no, this would never work. Like,
because they understand the basics of engineering.
Every single time. They're like, nope. That's not how that works.
So during the time that I was doing engineering stuff, I was working with carbon fiber. I was working with all that stuff. I'm not an expert by no way, by no means. If Stockton was still alive and not compressed into a tuna can, I'm pretty sure he would disagree with me and tell me, hey, you're completely wrong. But so carbon fibers meant, the reason that carbon fiber works so good on airplanes is because it's pressurized from the inside. The cabin's pressurized. The outside is not pushing in, it's pushing outwards. So with that comes the ability to withstand more delaminations, to be able to withstand more pressure inwards. So Stockton thought if it works inwards, it should work outwards. Now, the problem is that's part of the reason what is an issue with carbon fiber. It has a certain fail point when you exert too much pressure on it because you have delaminations. Now, during this documentary, the test conducted by Lockridge, he's showing one of the panels of part of the hull that was taken down to submersible when they heard a big crack, and you can see through it. You can literally see little gleams of light poking through the carbon fiber. I'm like, that
So it's fine.
is horribly,
It's fine.
horribly inaccurate.
Well, so let's also look here, right? This guy who was claiming that it was safe, okay? You have Stockton who was like, it's 100% safe. He didn't get this submarine classed, which is their way of saying, hey, this is safe. We approve of the use of this. He was trying to take it through different red tapes. So he's like, yeah, we'll go from this place to this place and use it here and do it so that way they don't have jurisdiction over these laws and we can continue to do. So he's trying to take the carbon fiber. He's trying to cut corners. He's trying to do everything he can in order to make this work, which ambition is great. It's something that drives you kind of going forward. I love the fact that, like, in the beginning of this, Stockton looked like it was like, hey, you know what? He had a drive. He had a goal. This might have just been an unfortunate event.
And it looked like everybody else was a hater.
Yeah.
Which is what it looked like.
And I was like, dude, I get it, because he's over there. This is probably what he stayed awake all night working on. This is probably something that he was like, this is my baby. This is everything. This was something that this man turned it from a ambition and very goal-driven to an unhealthy obsession for his greed and his ego.
Yeah.
Because even still, they mention this where he mentions talking about being a big dick swinger like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. And it's like, so you weren't actually trying to be an innovator for safety reasons and to be that person. You were trying to compete for another billionaire to be one of those top prize billionaires. So you just didn't give a fuck. And that's exactly what you were doing.
Right. And,
Like,
and he wanted to compare himself to those people, like, because they went to space and everything like that. Yeah, okay, first of all, completely different engineering, completely different disciplines. But if we really want to be crucial, do you know how long Jeff Bezos tested his ship? Before he even set foot inside of it, let alone anybody else. He tested it hundreds of times, thousands of times.
Elon. It's like a joke because all his rockets blew up, but they were testing different things. They were never meant to actually, because they tested every single thing, so they had to build a rocket every time.
Yeah,
They tested
they built a
every
rocket.
little
Okay,
thing.
the washers didn't work. Okay, now fix the washers. What else doesn't work? Oh, this didn't work. Okay, bring it back down.
And
this worked. You know,
Didn't they go through like 40 rockets before
they
they,
went
could
through
even make
40
it land?
rockets, but there's one crucial thing you're missing, Tyler. There weren't people on
there
board.
weren't people on it. He did it on
This
his
was
own.
all automated so that he would come back with that and be like, hey, you know what? Those bolts need to be changed out for stronger bolts because it's compromising the hull of the spacecraft.
That's just weakness.
You
Don't you know from NASA? You always put your best guys in the experimental rocket.
You always put your strongest teachers on there.
But no, like, and that was his whole get up. Like, I've worked with carbon fiber. I know what it does. But you severely underestimated the power of Mother Nature.
But did you guys say in the beginning of this that he had a video of him walking around the thing as it's cracking?
Oh, no, he's not walking around it. He's inside. So, okay, let me tell you about this one, right? So it leads from one dive to the other dive. So one dive, he goes into to another wreckage, right? And he takes a few people, including David Lockridge. David Lockridge is, another part of his background is that he's an expert pilot when it comes to submersibles. And when we say professional pilot, we mean in the very, very, very few instances that shit like this has taken place, he's very good at using submersibles, very good at using remote submersibles, remote crafts that go underwater, that go above water, stuff like that, right? So he's very comfortable with it. And he knows how to orient himself. So Stockton prepares this dive, and the meters are only 1,600 and something meters, right? So it's significantly less. And he goes, okay, everybody get in. And David Lockridge says, hey, all right, give me the control. Let me drive. Which, again, a lot of people are going to clown on Logitech, PlayStation, Xbox. 90% of all the fucking remote controlled vehicles are controlled by.
It's literally an Xbox controller usually.
It's because it's the most effective and the most efficient. So
because the person to train, they just give them video games.
Yeah,
because
it's easier to train.
They don't know what else to do because they're like, okay, because I've seen it where they used to have really like way more complex controllers, and they do have them. But I've seen them where they're like, no, this is too much. It's too many buttons because you need to be able to do it kind of fast.
Yeah.
And so they're like, no, you need to learn. It's better to learn like a button combination than, oh, I have to remember this button does this. It's
right.
Like, no, just.
And before submersibles or submarines, whatever, had the whole steering like a boat. And it's like, well, you're trying to do this, 3 torpedoes hit you. So you had to advance in warfare. You had to advance and all that stuff. So
they've even tried doing it where they had like the 2 where you try and move it.
Oh yeah, like a plane where you had a pilot and a co-pilot.
Yeah, and so they've had it where you've had to do that. And these are all different classes of sub, though.
Obviously, yeah.
So it's like, honestly, the game controller thing, the Logitech, first of all, shout out to you, Logitech. For the most indestructible controller on the planet.
We retrieved that controller back. Everyone buy Logitech right now. Go on Amazon, $99.
We could have probably chucked that Logitech controller at the iceberg and sunk it.
That bitch could survive 2 implosions.
I want you guys to know when it was going down, I actually did look up the Logitech controller to see which one it was and see if I could buy it, and it was sold out.
Yeah, bro. Everybody bought it. Everybody bought it.
Dude,
bro,
fucking
there
why
was
wouldn't
deals
you?
going on the black market. I went to LA and some dude pulled up a coat and was like, "You want your Logitech controller? I got 3 different colors."
No,
I was like, "Whoa!"
Don't want that Logitech controller. Here's a Nokia phone. It's like
this is the one that came off the submersible itself.
I want them to have like a memorial Logitech controller.
Yeah, fuck, dude. We'll probably be long gone before that fucking controller dies. Like,
dude, for real. Logitech, shout out to you, bro.
That shit's like the Energizer Bunny. That shit just keeps going and going and going.
Real quick, I want to know who the stockbroker was when the thing imploded and they knew that there was a Logitech controller and they recovered it. He probably picked up the phone, was like, buy all of Logitech right now.
Dude, there was ads for that. You don't realize that?
Buy Logitech right now. All of it.
There was like a huge ass like post on social medias and stuff like that about like Logitech controllers. Like people, like there was an actual ad like where Logitech started advertising, but not about Oceangate. It was just like,
I feel bad for the dude. Okay, so Logitech is like going through the moon, and then you just have the poor insurance guy that's like in his office. He's like, it was my first day. I didn't know. And so he's like, I have to get a new job.
But anyway, so they all went down to the sub, and then they went through their expedition, right? So this is a like more of a pirate boat wreckage. So it's kind of like more wooding, like more shit, right?
This is what I was talking about off the podcast earlier.
Right,
is that they like built it wasn't a different one.
It's a completely different ocean wreck. It's a different shipwreck.
No. I know the wreck, but like the submersible they built, they built another one for it. They had problems with that one too.
No, actually reverse. This was the first one. Okay. This was called the Cyclops 1. Mm-hmm. This one was called the Cyclops 1. This one was a successful sub. It was a successful sub, but for those depths. It wasn't built for Titanic. It was only built for low tech. It's a really cool sub. If you look up Cyclops 1, it's a really cool looking sub. It's dope. It has a bunch of again, they're all Logitech controllers, but it's like a big bubble.
If you think of like, oh, what would a submersible look like? It actually
looks like it.
Yeah.
And from what I hear and all the stats, it's actually quite successful, and it's very mission ready. Now, here's where things go fucking east. So as they're going through all this, Stockton is piloting. Now Lockridge had told him on the surface, "Hey, bro, give me the controller. Let's go ahead and do this." And Stockton's like, "No, don't worry. I'm the pilot." And Lockridge is like, "This isn't GTA, my guy." So
this is actually, and just to give you a little correct, Lockridge didn't want to get on at first.
Yeah.
And then so Stockton was like, "I'm gonna pilot this," and Lockridge was like, "Fuck." Yeah. All right. He's like, I'm going in. He's like, I'm going to be with you then.
Because Stockton wanted to leave him behind. And he's like, no, I'm not going to. If you're going to pilot it, I'm going to be there.
And you have other people with you. Because it wasn't just Stockton and Lockridge. There was like 2 other people. 3 other people. And so like he gets down there. And this is the part where he's like, Lockridge goes, he dropped us into a fucking debris field.
Yeah. Instead
he
of
knows
going around,
nothing.
instead of going around like you're supposed to, because again, if you're not familiar with it, we did a little basic research, not too much. We're not familiar with it either. We're not going on deep sea dives or whatever, anything like that. But if you have the shipwreck here, it's recommended that the submersible stay like this far away from the debris, just because if it hits something, you're under the water.
You might implode.
Or you can cause further damage to the sub.
Yeah.
You might be stuck there. Maybe you're not. Maybe you won't implode. Maybe it's built well, but you'll get stuck there and you'll be unable to resurface. So there's always a risk. So they tell you, hey, try to stay away.
Yeah.
Try to stay clear of the debris, all that stuff. And not just that, when the sub has motors and stuff, so there's silt going up, you reduce your visibility, you reduce your mobility, whatever, right? So not only does he drop them directly into a debris field, he gets them wedged into the bow of the boat.
At least he found it.
He gets them wedged into the bow of the boat.
Maximum effort.
And Lockridge is literally, there's panic on Lockridge's face in the documentary.
Sean, I know you're like frustrated right now, but you everyone in there cannot say they didn't see the Titanic, okay?
Well, no, they didn't see the Titanic. This was the different one.
Wait, it was the more shallow one?
Yeah, it was the more shallow one.
It was
where
the
he got
more
him
shallow
stuck.
one, and this is the part that is the real kicker.
So
Lockridge is so Stockton is stuck, and he got them stuck, and this is his fucking fault. And then to boot on this, right? Lockridge goes, he's trying to tell them like, hey, stop moving, stop trying to get, because you're only gonna do some damage. He looks at Stockton and goes, give me the controller, and he gets them unstuck. This is the issue with someone who knows absolutely fucking nothing. And this is
right.
I forgive me for going on this rant,
No,
but
it's fine.
he was like, this guy came from old money. He never had anything where he was like told no, nothing like that. He was like bottom of his class engineer. You know, he built his own airplane, so he thought he knew something about fucking subs. Built a sub. He tasted a little bit of success with this particular dive, and this is probably the thing that made it worse for him. This is the fact that he was able to get out alive from this one was like, okay, so it can be done.
Not even, because he went to the Titanic afterwards. We'll explain on that one in a bit. But with the Cyclops, after he gets unstuck and Lockridge was able to get everybody back to safety, he tells everybody, he goes, hey, what the fuck, man? What was that? And Stockton ignores him. Begins ignoring him. Begins, like he said earlier, he takes him off all the major email chains. He takes him off everything because it becomes embarrassing for him. Now he holds a meeting and there's a video crew and you can see it where he's sitting there and he goes, okay, let's talk about things that happened, things that didn't happen, that are rumored to happen. And he kind of gives a glance over to Lockridge and it's like, bro, like, and he's like, he talks about pH and he's like, oh, pH, James Cameron and all them will tell you that as you're going down in the submersible, you hear cracking, you hear tumbling, you hear noise and stuff. And Lockridge is over here like, yes, but not like that. Like,
you're a grown man.
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, like again, if you want to do that, cool, do it on your own.
yeah, do it on your own.
Do it on your own.
So with that comes the next building. That's where Boeing starts getting involved and all that stuff. And then they have all the failed attempts and everything. And Boeing says, hey, we're done here. We're done. We're out of this. You're not going to be able to do it.
That's smart.
Well, yeah.
They are literally, so one of the things is, and there's a handful of people that start understanding that this isn't the fucking case, right? Boeing walks away.
Yeah.
But there's a lunch where where Stockton is talking about cutting corners and shit. And one of the dudes goes, I can't be in the room for this. I'm leaving.
Yeah, 'cause
And
it's
gets
their
up and
reputation.
leaves. And he's like, you know, the biggest thing here is, right? Someone tells you, no, you can't do it this way. You have to do it a different way. They're not telling you that it's impossible to do, that you're fucking wrong. They're telling you that, hey, you can't do it this way. It's not going to work. You're going to hurt yourself or someone else. Now, at some point, I stopped giving a fuck about you being hurt.
Right.
And it's the someone else that concerns me. And that's the same thing that Lockridge goes through. That's the same thing that the head engineer tells him. All of these people are telling Stockton, hey, bro, you're fucking up, and this is going to cost a lot of money, and this is going to probably cost someone their lives, or even if they survive, you are going to be ruined because this is going to be the worst thing that happens if it fucking fails, and that's where this is going. All of our tests show this.
And he builds the Cyclops too, which is the Titan.
Yeah, this
Now-
is the part I remember.
Now he
'Cause
builds
I've
the
heard about
Titan.
this.
Now, when he builds a Titan, the Cyclops 2, he starts getting some word out. So he starts doing interviews and starts doing, everything like that. And they start talking about the similarities between Titanic and Titan, how people were saying that it couldn't be done, blah, 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 blah. Start doing all the positive stuff, relaying it together, right? Well, Discovery Channel gets a hold of this story and realizes, hey, Stockton Rush, this innovative engineer, he's doing this. Let's jump on it, right? So the CEO at the time of that department that was doing I think it was Modern Marvels or whatever, does a segment, sends one of the reporters out, and he's very famous. He has a bunch of Netflix shows, bunch of fucking Disney shows. I can't remember his name, but he's a redhead guy, right? You'll know him when you see him on the screen.
Wait, did he talk a lot like this?
No. This guy, he sounded like how you did in your old podcast where you were sounding like a 1930s guy.
Okay.
So he was talking like that, right? And he goes over with his camera crew and everything, and they're like, "Hey, we're here to film." And Stockton goes, "Hey, bro, that's cool. Let's go ahead and go down for a dive. We're gonna go see the Titanic." Guy's excited, and he goes in. He reports, he's like, "Bro, nothing worked. Nothing worked. Thrusters didn't work. Communications didn't work."
This is the shit I remember.
Yeah.
This is the first thing I saw where, and I think this is the pivotal point where a lot of people in the regular public was like, "Oh shit!
Not even." And this is where it gets worse. You'll see this. So as soon as he starts going down, they lose comms, they lose thrusters, they lose everything. So they're communicating through sticky note through the porthole, and they're talking to each other, trying to figure out, "Oh, we're good, we're doing this, we're doing that." And the guy jokingly from Modern Marvels is like, "Is he coming with us? Is he gonna go down there with us so we can communicate?" Like as a joke, but in reality, you see the camera guy and he's like, "What's happening?" And as they start going down, you can hear what now sounds like fiberglass breaking. You just hear it, just very, very crazy. Well, because of the thrusters and everything like that, they have a little bit of weather as well. They scrap the dive, right? They scrap the dive. And the guy does the whole Richard Nixon when he comes out of the Modern Marvels thing. He goes, he does the whole peace thing, and he comes out and he goes, "Well, that was uneventful." And he starts talking. He immediately gets on the phone with the CEO from Discovery Channel and says, "I know we've sunk a lot of money into this. I know we've done a lot of things to recover this report. We need to pull off of this because someone's going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be an issue here, and you don't want to be involved in it." The CEO, according to this guy, said done and clicked the phone and didn't go further.
Smartest decision he could have made as a CEO.
Bro.
Both of them. I bet you that dude was kissing the ground when he got back up.
He did.
Because
He
the
was
biggest
shocked.
thing with these guys, a lot of the reporters that go out to the field and stuff like that, they have nerves of fucking steel. So if something is going wrong, their faces don't show it. Their body language, everything doesn't show it, because what they're doing is, we got to stay calm because we might have to fucking do something.
Especially him. If you've seen that show, if they have new weaponry or whatever, he's testing it. He's wearing the bulletproof vest.
Isn't he also the dude that was doing Deadliest Catch and stuff too? He's on the ships and they're
I think so.
But no,
and he's recording and everything. Yeah,
yes,
I think that's him.
But those guys, this is not the first rodeo. So
he's hanging off cliffs to nowhere.
If he's saying no, that means no.
This wouldn't be like if me and Sean were like, "Hey, we're doing an interview with you. We're just gonna film real quick. Go down, see what's going on." We've never been.
These guys are more like interviewing you upside down with an experimental grappling hook off the side of the Grand Canyon in the middle of it
during summer.
And so we're hoping that we don't fall. You know what I mean? That's his job.
They're the guy that goes up with Alex Honnold.
Right. They're the camera.
rope.
They're the camera crew of Bear Grylls. That's
they're
where
that
these guys.
Guy. Yeah.
Those guys.
This is for fucking realsies, right? And again, I know I've bagged on this dude a lot. I'm going to bag on him a lot more. But first of all, fucking Stockton didn't listen to any professionals who were in the field.
Nope.
He didn't listen to any business people who were about that field, who knew their engineering shit. He didn't listen to people who were doing the documentary. He didn't listen to people who were part of his financial advisory. He didn't listen to people
None of them.
who were part of the actual dives and part of the teams. He was to the point where he was telling people, yeah, $50,000, I can ruin somebody's life. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
He would fire people frequently,
did that.
berate them in front of people. Like, he was the worst motherfucker to walk on this planet, and I'm glad he's fucking gone.
That specific quote where he says, I don't mind spending $50,000 to ruin someone's life, he said that directly about Lockridge because he drained Lockridge's fortune with bullshit court cases saying that he broke contract, that he did all that stuff. So he did all that. Whatever. Let's say that that's not the worst thing he did, but that's probably one of the worst things he did. He goes on another dive with another specialist in the submersible. I can't remember his name, but he talks kind of funny. And he's this guy in the implosion documentary on HBO. He didn't show up in the Netflix one. He showed up in the original one. He said he was just done. He's like, I'm not doing this again. Like, this is fucking stupid. So it's him and another documentary crew that go down to the Titanic. This time they see the Titanic. They're talking to him about the cracking as they're doing it. And do you know what he says? Do you know what Stockton Rush says? Oh, well, I've noticed that if I put earplugs in, everything else works very, very well. To avoid the cracking sound. Now,
That's some shit you say about your car, not about a fucking sub, bro.
not even your car.
Dude.
Bold of you to do it about your car.
That, and then to bring people with you.
He told one of the camera crew. He told one of the camera crew, "Do you have a wife?" And he's like, "No." He goes, "Do you have a kid?" He goes, "No." He goes, "Okay, cool. You can come in." It's like, bro. And then here's one of the things. They all testified that going down, they heard a bunch of cracking, a bunch of little like whatever, right? And they're going through it and they're seeing it. They lose power, but they maintain. They see a beautiful sight. They see the Titanic. They see it. It's there. They light it up. They look at it. They enjoy. They ascend. And as they ascend, they hear the loudest pop ever. A crack this size showed up on the hull. Now, everybody said, hey, we heard this pop. There was reports of the pop. People went ahead and documented it. People went ahead and took pictures of it. Stockton Rush, instead of scrapping the hull, grinded out the crack.
Why would you?
He
Why would you grind it?
He grinded out the crack.
You're making it work. I'm not even.
He grinded out the crack.
Shut up, because I'm gonna get too mad.
He grinded out the crack, despite his main engineer telling him, "Don't grind the crack." He ground the crack. Now,
I'm not an engineer. I know. If I want to strengthen metal, I know I'll make it thinner.
And it's not metal; it's carbon fiber. It's worse.
But still,
anyway,
it's same principle. You don't make it thinner.
So he grinded off the delaminations, thinking that nobody would see, nothing would happen. Now we've all seen Forged in Fire. What happens when those delaminations get too big? You have catastrophic failure. So on top of that, now his director of engineering tells him, "Hey, bro, I understand you grinded it out. We still need a new hull. It's wintertime. What are we gonna do about this?" And Stockton goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of the storage." Now the engineer tells him, "Hey, okay, I get that you're gonna take care of the storage. It has to be in a facility that's weatherproof and all that stuff, because you can't have the expanding and the constricting of freezing and unfreezing of carbon fiber, because of the fact that if there's a delamination, it'll get water in there and spread the crack, and then when it melts, it'll look like there's no crack. So don't do that." And he's like, "Okay, cool." Well, the documentary shows numerous pictures of him parking it on a parking lot in the harbor in freezing cold temperatures, where there's snow on top of the submersible. Freezing snow. And there's like time-lapse video where you see the snow melt, come back, melt, come back, melt, come back, whatever.
Okay, so I didn't know any of this stuff. Like,
oh, there's more.
I'm sure there's more. It's just
because
it's
when he
painful.
tells
It's
his
painful.
when he tells his engineer, "Hey, this is where it's being kept," the engineer goes ballistic and goes, "What the fuck? I told you not to do this. This is the one thing." So Stockton Rush fires him. He fires him. He tells him that he's not allowed to be a part of this expedition. He doesn't see his same vision, and dismisses him. A few weeks later, Titan goes for its maiden voyage. the infamous implosion one. He takes PH, a few other people, and as they're trailing down the depths, his wife, Stockton Rush's wife, is currently running the modules. As she's running the modules, they're communicating with the submersible, and a text is sent from the submersible that says dropping 2 weights. It's the famous one that everyone knows, where it says dropping 2 weights. After, or right before you get that text, right before she gets that text message, there's a pop that they hear over the sonar. And then the text comes in, dropping 2 weights. She acknowledges and goes, "What's that pop?" Because it sounded like a door slam from where they're at. So one of the guys from behind her goes around and goes to see if anybody slammed the door or whatever, right? So she's asking, "What's that pop?" And then she gets a text that says, "Drop 2 weights." The text message was sent approximately a minute before the implosion. And the implosion happened while the text was being received, which is what caused the communication, right? The miscommunication, I guess, right? So it goes missing. They have to call the Coast Guard, and they're like, "Okay, well, what classification is the submersible? What's the registration?" As they would normally, and they don't have anything because, as Aaron mentioned earlier, they didn't classify it or flag it. So now nobody knows which jurisdiction it is, who's in charge of it, and now it's a wild goose chase. And from there, we saw the news reports where people thought they had 96 hours and all that stuff, and we see all that. Well, it turns out that the Coast Guard, at the very time of the implosion, detected what they called an implosion-like event or an implosion-like sound directly on top of the Titanic, right where the submersible would be. But because they had no definitive proof, they continued with this whole 96 hours, this many hours, until they found the wreckage. When they found the wreckage, Logitech, we found the controller, but they discovered the remnants of the sub along with what they addressed as human remains. Essentially, the front of the cylinder that had the porthole, well, the port window was blown out, and everything else basically turned into a mixing bowl in the very front of bodily fluids, corroded parts, fluids that went to the submersible, obviously ocean water, and whatever debris they could find. The Coast Guard has not released its official reports yet. They've done a lot of interviews. They've done a lot of testimony where they show that Stockton was 100% liable, and he was warned very, very well ahead of time that this was just a matter of time. And he chose to ignore all those statements. He chose to ignore all the professionals, and he chose to ignore all of his leaders of expertise. Now, in the testimony, you see engineers where they're sitting there, and they're like, "So did you make the final engineering decisions?" And they're like, "No, Stockton did. He was the one that did it all." And that, unfortunately, as it stands right now, is the story of Oceangate. Lockridge is suing the estate of Stockton Rush. The guy who was taken on the last submersible ride before the implosion is suing the estate, claiming that Stockton tried to kill him by failing to let him know that there was a crack in the hull and that there was a compromised hull, and they had to switch out to another hull, and told him that he was completely safe.
Good. I'm in favor of all of this. Fuck
Yeah.
them.
The only thing is that my heart really goes out to the people who didn't know and were with him, like, because clearly you had a man and his kid that was there, and there's nothing sadder than the loss of innocent life. Like, these people thought that they were spending money, and when I first heard about this, I was like, oh, it's just a few billionaires and their fucking kid, like, they fucking knew these things going in. But no, the way that this documentary shed some new light for me was flat out it was an egregious just absolute neglect on the part of Stockton that cost the lives of innocent people because he wanted to be the next Musk, the next Bezos. And it was arrogance, it was greed, it was an unhealthy obsession. You know, like basically, I'm glad Stockton's rotten in hell. Like, fuck him. I don't give a fuck. I don't say that to a lot of people. I don't, but this particular instance, fuck him. Like, he is the worst human being in my opinion.
He tried to get away from having certain insurances about having guests on the submersible by calling them mission specialists.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Because they were like, because everyone was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't do this with everything. You have to have some standards.
Right.
And he's like, I'm just a trailblazer or whatever the fuck.
And he would say that was his claim. He was a trailblazer.
Yourself, dude.
Yep.
Like,
and one of
people.
the workers for Oceangate, he was in charge of loading everybody in and bolting the submersible. Well, he was the last one that did it for this implosion one as well. He says that his most, and we're gonna end this after this because, damn. He says that the last thing that he vividly remembers is the fact that the 17-year-old boy that was involved in the accident did not want to go. He was very against going, and he says that he helped push him into the sub so they can close up and so he can go. And he's like, and that's the last thing that this kid ever experienced before he died, that someone forced him to get into a submersible that he didn't want to do and never walked out of there.
Fuck him.
That's got to be the one that really stuck with me, where I'm like, oh, damn.
And that dude didn't even do anything wrong. Like,
he was doing his job. Like, sorry, but he was.
Just from what I've seen, I know you guys watched the documentaries.
Yeah.
When I watched the videos and stuff, you guys have more information than I do, but all I remember seeing is people being like, even their employees were kind of lied to about what was going on. And they didn't know.
If they asked questions or did shit like that, he'd fire him.
Yeah, he would. There was this girl named Ella who was supposed to be the face of Oceangate. After that one, he was like, oh, we're going to make you the face of Oceangate. You're going to be our lead pilot. And she's like, one more time?
Yeah. I'm an accountant.
He showed. I remember about this. He showed her all this stuff, and she's like, "I can't do any of this shit.
I can't do any of that."
And she avidly said this. She was like, "I'm not going to be that. I'm an accountant. I can't drive a sub."
Yeah, and
unfortunately, he was trying to spin it for like media publicity, where he's like, "We're gonna have a woman pilot who's doing the sub."
Oh, she started off as an accountant. This is how simple our sub is. Anybody can pilot it. Like that was his whole thing.
The spin on it for propaganda, and you know what? Now he's taking a propaganda at the devil's nuts. So have a good one, Stockton.
But either way, I recommend it. 10 out of 10, at least for me. I love the documentary. I thought it was a great documentary. What did you think about it?
Honestly, I like the documentary. I'm not a big documentary person. Mm-hmm. So, because I often find that they like to drag it out, but this one just seemed to get right into the meat and potatoes of everything,
right? And
just kind of shoot for it. So I really liked it. I thought it was incredibly informative. I knew nothing about Oceangate when we started watching it, and now I'm like, holy shit!
Yeah,
there's so much more that you should have just looked at.
Watch the Titan. Watch Titan, the Oceangate disaster, also on Netflix. Also watch Implosion. On HBO, also part of the Oceangate series. Great documentaries, really goes into depth. I think they're very well made documentaries. I think, especially if you have any inclination for, any type of aquatic life or ocean type of affiliation or affinity, go ahead and check it out. It's really cool, and the parallels between that and the Titanic are beyond coincidental, it seems, but it's really good. Seriously, go check it out. Again, 10 out of 10. I recommend it, and we appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you so much. Have a good one.